it was destroying children and blah, blah, blah. And like, no one was saying it was good. In fact, interestingly, charter schools and big money and families like the DeVos family have been trying to get public schools, obviously divert money from public education, that's what charter schools do, but trying to get more online learning, and in now using AI to do it in order to, again, privatize this thing, make it even like more expendable, more bankable, like somewhere we can leech off of it. And so now we're in this like post-COVID world. Online learning is like now become commonplace. And so why not just get rid of teachers altogether as well? Just turn them into AI. And so, but do you hear the right freaking out about that? Do you hear them freaking out about all the tech billionaires that are invested in Donald Trump, that support AI, all these that are just like salivating over the idea of destroying our jobs, including teachers' jobs? No.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You hear more about immigrants taking our jobs. No, it is AI, and this is not good for teachers, for communities, and certainly not for children.
Can we I don't know, what if we were to rebrand some of these AI programs as being foreign? Like if they're digital migrants, maybe we can get the right against them. Anyway, yeah, I'm frustrated by this in a lot of different ways. Can we just respect and support teachers, just as a lark for a couple of years and try it out and see what happens? They're not bad people, remember? You had them before. But also if you wanna have extra stuff to supplement school, you can't. Khan Academy is not new. You could have that. Also, why does everything have to be AI? You can have a program that lets you do classes. Why do you need ChatGPT involved? What does that actually add? Were the facts too verified previously? You want to add a wild card element to it? Was it not producing enough carbon emissions the old way? Every single tech development and announcement would have you believe that it's either AI or you're rubbing sticks together. That's not true. We had all sorts of computer programs and stuff. It doesn't have to be an LLM. It doesn't have to be generative. Why? What does that actually add?
Money.
Other than potentially profits for the corporation producing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
We had CD-ROMs with trivia and stuff on them before. We could do that stuff. It doesn't have to burn all of the electricity and water in our country.
Yes, and sadly, and I believe in innovation, but that is really ultimately it. It's that innovation's reached a point where it's honestly, under capitalism, it's not about delivering to people. It really is about who can make money off of this.
Who can make money. Well, you know what? We are going to be doing in just a few minutes our predictions for 2025. And I actually have one sort of related to all of this. So that'll be going out to our members later on today. If you'd like to become a member, get access to the members content we do every week and a backlog of literally a couple hundred videos that would be available to you, you can do that. For now, Francesca, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you,
have a great
John.
2025. And,
it's okay so far.
It's not bad, not bad. For everyone out there, go vote for the Community Garbage Person of the Year. The poll is either up now or will be up soon, but definitely go vote. Brett will be here tomorrow, and we're gonna have a little bit more fun as we cruise into 2025. For now, though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Ritchie. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day with me, none other than Ben Gleib, comedian and TYT contributor all-star. Always fascinating to have his analysis. First story of the day. What if I told you that a man shoots his neighbor's son, gets away with it, claiming a ridiculous legal defense in Florida? Put up the picture full mask. This is an update to a story. Florida, a murder charge against a 79-year-old Edward Drew Zalowski was dropped Friday after he successfully argued that he shot his neighbor's adult son in self-defense. Let me give you a reminder of what happened. The suspect was arrested in September 2023 after confronting a 42-year-old Brian Ford, who was on Edward's side of a fence. He was trimming tree limbs along the two men's property line. In a call to 911, the wife of Drew Zalowski said her husband, quote, just meant to scare him, end quote, when confronting Ford with a firearm. That's according to court documents. Ford, who was with his 8-year-old son, reacted aggressively, investigators concluded. The two men exchanged words, and Ford reportedly threatened the defendant with a chainsaw, prompting Edward Drew Zalowski to draw the firearm. Edward told police he warned Ford and told him, quote, to get off his property. And Brian said something to the effect of mind your business, followed by profanity. The De Leon, Florida resident said he then aimed his gun at Ford, who allegedly responded, quote, you are pointing a gun at me. Are you going to shoot me? And move closer. Ford remained on Edward Drew Zalowski's property, inching closer until the neighbor told him, stop right now or I'll shoot, end quote. ABC News reported that Edward told investigators Ford continued to advance even after the older man dry fired his revolver on an empty chamber. Quote, he said his firearm holds 6 rounds in the cylinder, but he keeps the first 2 empty for safety reasons. He stated Brian heard the gun click and continued to advance towards him, so he pulled the trigger a second time. He advised this time the firearm went off and he shot Brian, the authorities wrote to the court in 2023. Now I'm going to give you the defense in just a moment to properly contextualize what's happening. You have an individual with a gun who is threatening to kill someone because they have the audacity to trim tree limbs. That's what this is about. Cause and effect is important. You cannot argue the effect and not analyze the cause. What is the cause? Pettiness. What is the cause? A lack of value for human life. I value the life of everyone involved more so than I would ever value the issue that we're arguing about. He was charged with second-degree murder. In his defense, Edward cited his age, physical condition, and the size difference between him and Ford. Ford's son turned out to be a key witness, telling police his father had threatened the elderly man. The court determined prosecutors did not provide convincing evidence that Edward Drew Zalowski was not entitled to immunity on the basis of the stand your ground law, which says people faced with threats to their safety are not only required to retreat before, are not required to retreat before responding with force to a threat to their safety. The ruling has reignited a debate over the controversial law, which critics argue can lead to unjust outcomes in cases involving murky circumstances. Such laws have been linked to increased homicide rates. So I want to go back to the original defense. The original defense is not simply a stand your ground defense. The original defense is stand your ground contextualized through these other factors that aren't supposed to be highlighted, such as age, frailty, the inability or lack of capacity to fight. These are not supposed to be part of it. Here's why. Because it creates an inequitable dynamic in the law. Because this would suggest that under no circumstances could a particular individual ever be able to argue that what you did, sir, was actually murder. Because you have all these other frailties that the other individual does not have, meaning there's inequity in the law itself if it is applied successfully in your defense. That was one of the main arguments against stand your ground prior, that a young Black male who's healthy and athletic could never utilize this type of argument against an older individual if the roles were reversed. And now you have an actual court case that has allowed this kind of defense to be cross-contextualized in the defense of stand your ground as a reason for immunity. What else do we have? In a very ironic way, the authorities all believed that this man committed murder initially. The prosecutor charges, the police arrest, there's an actual indictment, and then the argument before members of a jury based on the statutory language of the law creates an atmosphere that lets them go. What's really happening? Policy is allowing murder. That's what's happening. Policy is allowing murder. Understand the cause and correlation. Where you have these ridiculous laws that allow for castle doctrine interpretation or stand your ground interpretation, these states also have increased homicides with these policies enacted. That's no coincidence. Ben, when it comes down to it, it's simply inhumane to ever think that a neighbor is dead because of the trimming of tree limbs on a particular property line. What say you?
I hear you, Doc. I have a different take on this story, just based on the limited evidence that I was able to, understand from the story. I think that, yes, the stand your ground law is problematic in some ways, but in this particular story, there also has to be some recourse that a man can take when he's being threatened on his own property by a neighbor. And the man who was killed's own son testified basically against him, saying that he was threatening the elderly man. You threaten somebody on your own property, that's at your own risk. You do so while holding a chainsaw, that's at your own further risk. And the man, Kozlowski, who killed Ford, warned him he was going to shoot, fired an empty round first, fired a second empty round, and the guy kept approaching him. Supposedly, it was what the trial seems to have come forward with, and said, "Are you going to shoot me?" Is cussing at him and threatening him worse. At some point, when are you supposed to be able to protect yourself from a threat on your own property?
Ben, I'm glad you brought that up, because you had a different point of view when someone else went to a property and was the aggressor. Who was the aggressor in this story?
I mean, initially it sounds like Kozlowski was the aggressor of
That is
approaching.
correct.
Yes, but when
Mhm.
when someone's on your own property, you have the right to ask them to leave. If they don't leave, you have the right to continue to ask them to leave. And if they become threatening, and if they're holding a chainsaw, which is a weapon that can easily murder somebody, at some point, you are defending yourself.
You have the right in 11 states to commit that crime and get away with it. Do you understand how policy contextualized the outcome of this? Because trespassing does not equate to your ability or capacity to murder somebody. It doesn't. 11 states in this country will allow you to kill somebody and have immunity based upon a castle doctrine like stand your ground, a permeation of that doctrine. But once again, we're back to a policy dynamic, because remember, a grand jury agreed this was murder. Police agreed this was murder. The DA agreed this was murder. And when you argue the facts before a jury with the statutory language of stand your ground, the prosecutor has to prove another element outside of the traditional element that would have been allowed prior to the policy being passed. So my point to you is this, and I understand your disagreement. You're wrong. And let me tell you why you're wrong. You don't get to be the aggressor and threaten to kill somebody over something that's not even a misdemeanor, but an ordinance violation. And because you threaten that individual then threatens you back, which now you have a mutual combat situation, and you decide to use your gun to kill them. It doesn't matter that the first two shots did not shoot. We're taking at face value what the man is saying. We don't know if those first two shots were intentional to kill or not. I know that if you did this in Georgia, those first two shots are just as customary as if you tried to kill somebody. The only contextualization would be if I believed your story rather than the fact that you did pull the trigger twice. And that would, of any objective observer, would say, well, you just tried to kill a man with 2 bullets, but you got him on the third one. Do you understand that? Like, once you pull the trigger, brother, you pull the trigger.
I mean, I think that's case dependent, yes, unless you can prove that you always did keep 2 chambers empty for warning and for safety reasons. I think, yes,
How would you prove that?
That is very hard to prove, but it's very hard to prove. So that's a fair point for sure. But also, at what point, if somebody, God forbid, was on your property, Doc, and had a chainsaw and was coming at you and cussing, and you said, get off my damn property now or I will shoot you, and they said, you're going to shoot me, and got closer to you, at what point are you allowed to interpret that as a threat?
Once again, you leave out the element that started it. You don't get to be the aggressor and then cite a policy dynamic. What do you think Kyle Rittenhouse was about? Kyle Rittenhouse was an aggressor. He was an agitator who was then allowed, based on policy, to get away with shooting individuals that he was an aggressor against and being in illegal possession of a firearm at that.
Totally.
Once again, it's
very
trespassing, Ben. Ben, it's trespassing, brother.
Scenario.
It's a trespassing crime. Call the police. It's a trespassing crime.
Rittenhouse wasn't on his own property, but the man's own son testified against his own father, saying he was threatening the elderly man.
He was an 8-year-old child who admitted that his father did utilize aggressive language back at the neighbor who came to him with a gun. I promise you, if somebody come to me with a gun, they're going to get aggressive words also, guaranteed. So the 8-year-old testified to the truth. Once again, the 8-year-old also testified that the neighbor was in fact the aggressor, that his father was simply trimming limbs, that his father was not the aggressor. See, these things are to be contextualized properly, dear brother. You can't dismiss them when, once again, in any other jurisdiction without the ridiculous stand your ground contextualization in Florida, this man would have been, in fact, not only arrested, not only indicted, but also convicted by a jury, given the statutory dynamics. The only thing that made this different is because of the stand your ground law, which, by the way, is echoed by the prosecutor, that it is the stand your ground policy passed by conservatives that made this outcome different than what the outcome would have been. So, Ben, what's the problem with that?
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a good point for sure. And I don't think fatal force needed to be used. I'm just saying we weren't there. And this is on someone's property, which I think makes it a little bit different.
It's on the property line. It's on the property line.
On his side,
It's on the property line. So let's talk about,
if somebody came at you with a gun, they're going to get harsh words. If I'm on somebody's property and they come at me with a gun, I'm getting off that property as soon as possible and not giving them harsh.
Well, okay. Well, that's why most states require that if something like that happens, you have a duty to retreat first. Do you understand why it's different in Florida? Like most states will say you have an actual duty to retreat if you feel as if there's a danger, only because that law requires that you care about the life of the other person. So you have this duty to retreat, which is eliminated in the Florida statute under Stand Your Ground.
Totally. And we can agree on this. People in Florida are aware of Florida's crazy laws. And so you have to be operating your life under the laws of the state in which you live. And so you have to take extra precautions to not fall victim to.
Well, that's an assumption not known in the facts, that he was aware of the statutory elements of the Stand Your Ground law. I'm not aware of all of the elements until I have to actually research it, look at element 1, element 2, element 3. When it comes to a property line dispute, in a subjective way, the man may not have known, Ben, that he was actually violating a property law. Typically, you get 2 to 4 feet of an easement when it comes to property lines. And that's so that the government can come in and maneuver as they choose to within 2 to 4 feet. So you may have had an easement issue. Hell, this may not even technically have been trespassing, brother.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
All right. I like the rigorous debate, though. I can appreciate it any day. All right. No debate here. 15 dead, and they should not be. 30 are injured after a man decides to drive into a crowd in New Orleans. It's very sad. Put up the picture full mass. I'm going to give you the background and the update as we currently have it. So according to the FBI, at least 15 people are dead. 30 people were injured after a man drove a truck into a crowd at Bourbon and Canal Street in New Orleans. This was on New Year's Day. This is being considered a terrorist attack. The identity of the suspect and the truck has been confirmed. The suspect is Shamsuddin Jabbar, U.S. Army veteran out of the state of Texas. Here's what we know. A man intentionally drove a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street, New Orleans. This is the French Quarter, in a deadly rampage early on New Year's Day. At least 14 people were killed before the attacker died in a shootout with police. That's according to the official report. Dozens of others were injured in the attack. So a black ISIS flag was flying from the truck's rear bumper. And the attack is being investigated as an act of terrorism. The Federal Bureau of Investigation said the pickup truck appeared to be rented. In televised remarks Wednesday evening, President Biden said the FBI has determined just hours before the attack, Jabbar posted videos to social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill, that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. FBI agent Alethea Duncan said at a news conference Wednesday afternoon that investigators, quote, did not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible for the attack. And the FBI believes he may have had help carrying it out. Duncan said the FBI is looking at a, quote, range of suspects. We don't know exactly what that means yet, and does not want to rule anything out at this stage of the investigation. The FBI is also working to determine his potential affiliations or associations with terrorist associations. So a person familiar with the investigation told CBS News that at this point, neither ISIS nor any other foreign terror organization has claimed responsibility for the attack. The attacker drove around barricades and up onto the sidewalk of Bourbon Street, New Orleans Police Department Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick said, avoiding barriers that had been placed by police. Kirkpatrick said the man, quote, was trying to run over as many people as he could, end quote. The man then exited the car and opened fire on officers, the FBI official said. He died after exchanging gunfire with 3 responding officers, the FBI said. He was struck by police fire and declared dead at the scene. The New Orleans Police Department said 2 police officers were hit by gunfire but are in stable condition. Let's put up the police chief. A statement came from the chief. Quote, "We had a car there, we had barriers there, we had officers there, and he still got around," Kirkpatrick said. Weapons and 2 potential improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, were located in the vehicle, Duncan said. At least 1 other IED was found in the French Quarter and was detonated by law enforcement. A person familiar with the investigation said the number of IEDs left behind is a large part of why the FBI believes the man may have had an accomplice, sources tell CBS News. Investigators are combing through video to see if there were accomplices involved in placing the devices, sources told CBS News. Now, the FBI is actually leading the investigation. Marissa, do we have that video of him talking? So there's an old YouTube video. It gives you an idea of some of his character and mannerism. Here it is.
Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be responsive and take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch. So I've taken those skills and applied them to my career.
Human resource specialist and IT specialist, self-described. This is a very sad occasion. Now, obviously, it was quickly determined, categorized as an act of terrorism. I agree with the category, just given the amount of information available now. I will say this. According to the FBI narrative, this individual was radicalized by propaganda. That's according to their own narrative, ISIS propaganda. Understand that if somebody can be radicalized by propaganda in the context of ISIS, that there are people who are radicalized by political propaganda in the context of MAGA. Understand these things are not mutually exclusive. They are connected. That propaganda can radicalize people to do extremely dangerous things, such as attempt to kill a bunch of people, and sometimes successfully do at one time. It is unfortunate. Obviously, the investigation continues. Our information is currently not complete. We will bring you updates. Ben, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's great, Doc, that you're highlighting the fact that this is a terrorist attack and this man's radicalization into ISIS ideology and working on their behalf, whether they claim it or not, is not the point. The man clearly, there's no more clear evidence. And I don't know why the media in general is doing such a great job of burying the fact that this is a terror attack. The man had an ISIS flag on the back of his truck while running people down, clear as day. They were very quick to say Luigi Mangione was a terror attack when it's literally not even fitting the definition of terrorism. He was trying to target one specific person of a very elite, small class of people. Not that he should have done that, but that's not black and white terror like this is. This is a great example of the dangers facing us here in the West of radical Islamic terrorism. This is what happens when people are radicalized and bastardize an otherwise peaceful, beautiful religion of Islam and take it to murder people who don't agree with them. This man apparently said that he was originally thinking about killing his own family, but that the news coverage wouldn't be focused then on the fight of believers versus non-believers. This is jihadism on our shores. This can't be buried. I don't know why we've gotten into this PC place where we are afraid to call something what it is on its face. This is what globalizing the Intifada means. It means they're coming for us in the West who have Western values, who believe in equality for all people, all belief systems. And this is a man that just so clearly, you see him in a clip before, was a patriot, was a man who served his country. And due to ISIS propaganda kills American citizens because he hates our values. He hates what we stand for. He wants to impose his religious beliefs on others. And when you support that kind of thing in some weird presentation of, oh, I think it's important to support anyone. No, you don't support people whose beliefs are specifically to kill us, to kill people with Western values. You stick with our allies, you stick with the people that support what we stand for, and not imposing their religious extremism on the world.
Yeah, and when you zoom out and not get so caught up in the weeds, because sometimes we can miss the bigger dynamic at play. The bigger dynamic is this lack of value for human life. This lack of value for human life. And that may seem fluffy to some people, but it's real. The more you can see yourself, the more you can appreciate the experiences of life for yourself, the more you can see who you are as an independent, autonomous, sovereign human being, the more you see that in other people. But when you don't see yourself, it's very, very difficult to see other folk. And our political narrative, our cultural narrative, and sometimes our social narrative gets into the us and them, where there are those who are devalued, and then those are prompted as more valuable than. And that becomes the genesis for much of this. It's very unfortunate. Obviously, we will keep you updated as more information comes. All right. New Jersey cops exposed as racist as hell. Put up the picture full mass. This is an interesting saga. So a group of New Jersey cops have now been exposed after their text messages betrayed them. They have surfaced. Only one officer, however, has been fired. It started as an investigation into an officer-related car crash. But once officials began investigating the text sent that day, they came across something, well, let's just say more troubling. One text read, quote, "Next, I'll be cleaning the floors or some ish like I'm the effing hired N-word or something." An officer from the Marlboro Township, New Jersey Police Department texted. After an officer from the Freehold Township, New Jersey, texted racial slurs about the Black community, another officer from the same department responded, quote, "I'm not racist. I hate everyone. If anything, Jews is one race I hate. I don't have a problem with Black people. They make their own problems and names." Isn't it ironic how somebody that racist can start their sentence with, "I'm not racist," and then say something racist against our Jewish brothers and sisters, and then against Black people also, but they're not racist. In their mind, all of this fits. In their mind, they're indoctrinated to such a degree that it makes sense to them. Doesn't make sense to people who are woke. Quote, "One message that stands out the most is the one that says, 'I hate N-words,'" said Harrison Dillard, president of the NAACP in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. Quote, "It doesn't say N-words, it says the word. There's no ambiguity there," end quote, from the president of the NAACP. Another message referred to Asians in a derogatory fashion. Okay. According to WABC TV in New York, one of the officers was fired because of the text he sent. There's no record of any formal disciplinary action against the other three officers involved, and at least one is still on the job, the station confirmed. The two officers involved from the Freehold Township resigned from their department in good standing. They were allowed to do so. Remember, we talked about the game of resignation. They were allowed to resign. They could have been fired too, but they were allowed to resign. The next quote, "We can't see the heart of everybody and every officer as they're doing the hiring process," Dillard said. "These officers showed us their hearts They showed us what they think of people of color. In a statement, the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office said allegations of racism are, quote, taken extremely seriously and investigated in a thorough manner. Prosecutor knows you can't really do anything about the text messages, okay? But what you can do is research the background of these officers to see if they have lied on official documents, if they have framed innocent individuals, if they have decided to engage in bias during their professional duties, which is unbecoming of an officer and a violation of their oath. But let's back it up. These officers were simply racist. Why is that important? Because their job requires them to be advocates of justice, advocates of protection for people, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of creed, sexual orientation, etc. And isms never travel alone. If it's racism, it's guaranteed to be sexism. So understand, these individuals are not just caught being racist, they are these other isms as well. It speaks to the indoctrination of culture, because on paper, they're not supposed to engage in these kinds of things. Well, how does the culture permeate? The culture permeates because there's a lack of enforcement for the infraction, evidenced by the fact that every single one of them were not fired who engaged in this kind of conduct. This is why I say, Ben, we're stronger as a coalition. We're stronger as a closed fist when we fight as a coalition. Because when you look at who these officers talked about, they basically left nobody. The only people they left off the table, brother, were white men, white males. That's it. Everybody else, fair game for their racism. What say you?
Yeah, you're right, Doc. The only group maybe that doesn't as urgently need the coalition is white people, because they seem to be doing all right numbers wise. Anybody that's a minority needs to team up and back each other, and hopefully any white person with a good heart and soul joins that cause. You know, the one thing I disagree with the president of the local New Jersey NAACP chapter, they're saying that the message that stands out the most is the one saying I hate N-words, because the other two were equally as racist and bigoted and discriminatory, saying they hate the slur for Asian people is equally as bad, and saying that they straight up hate Jews is equally as bad. And I feel as though, you know, in recent times, I don't feel as though, and I know a lot of my Jewish community feels the same way, that while we've always stood by our Black brothers and sisters, that we haven't felt the same way during this incredibly difficult year and a half that we've been going through of rapidly rising anti-Semitism. You know, I follow an account on Instagram called Black and Jewish Unity. That's a beautiful account, but I don't feel a lot of that unity publicly when people are quick to abandon us in our time of need. And any form of hate, like you said, is linked to all forms of hate and is equally unacceptable. And it's not more acceptable to hate on Jews than it is to hate on Black people or Asian people. It's all equally abhorrent, and we need to do better at rooting this out from our law enforcement. You're right, we need to fire these people hands down. Any disparities in their arrest numbers or stop numbers should throw cases out based on these horrible people. And we have to get better finally at weeding out racists in the application process. They have to make it more enticing people to apply to be law enforcement officers, because they sometimes probably are not doing all they can to find out racist tendencies because they need numbers. But you can't just ask somebody directly in a test, are you racist? Because they're obviously going to say no. Do some things when they think the test is done. Do some psychological tests to be clever and see if they reveal their biases. We cannot have people protecting and serving just some.
You know, and I concur with your point, and I'm going to say something. People get upset when I say this, but really there's no way around it, all right? If you want a better cop, you got to pay them more money. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say it lightly at all. But if you pay cops a low wage, you set the standard low for who can become a cop. You pay cops a higher wage and you require more for them to become an officer in the first place. You may attract a better stock of police officers. That to me is a better scenario than giving them more money to get military equipment in order to occupy your city when they should be protecting and serving. If you want a better cop, have better opportunities for the officer to not only make money, but to thrive. Also require more, such as morals clause, check their social media history prior to hiring, make sure that they have a psychological evaluation every 6 months to every 1 year while on duty, because the cop you hire on day 1 is not the same cop on day 365. We need to know that, and possibly if there are biases in the culture of their local police department, they can be checked immediately. These things require budget, money, and intention rather than simply giving them more weapons. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the Bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed, so I won't stop. You won't stop either. All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda. I appreciate everyone for joining the conversation. Don't forget, you can always join, become a member. And we have some comments. I'm going to read as many comments as I can. Okay. All right, here we go. Yeah. Biden flavor corn pop. A society that allows gun ownership to this level can't possibly have respect for human life. You make a great point. Once again, microcosm, macrocosm, right? You have the incident, but you also have the policy. And yeah, Biden flavor corn pop makes a good point. Allowed to resign, a good standing, allowed. That's right. That's the whole game they play. And why did I serve? What did I serve for? So, Doc, that means if someone falls off their bike into my lawn while carrying tools, it's a free fall. Cops don't know laws. Why would civilians? Yeah, and the stand your ground law in Florida doesn't require that it's on your own property. That's one of the ridiculous contextualizations of it, that at least Castle Doctrine has a property connector, while stand your ground is not. All right. Got something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Japanese people's eyes are so squinted.
Uh-oh. Do you know why what?
Do you know why Japanese people's eyes are so squinted?
No.
Because Hiroshima was bright.
Because Hiroshima was what?
Right.
Not when they don't care.
Where they dropped the atomic bomb and they were looking at it and made their eyes all squinted.
Oh.
And that's all I got.
You know, I really wish we would have the pictures of the individuals who submitted this ridiculous racist joke. We can put up the picture we do have for mass. I want to remind everyone that they are making a racist joke about a lot of people being killed, and somehow that is supposed to be funny. The Uber driver wanted to tell jokes, but forgot she was racist, according to the Post. It's interesting. You don't even know them, right? You don't even know them. When did this become comfortable? When did this become okay? I'm struck by the boldness of it, because you don't know what another person is going to say in response to something like that. If you are a bigot, typically you have your own bigoted crew, and your bigoted crew, you all tell bigoted jokes together. Now the bigotry is becoming, well, just an expression of freedom of speech. You can just go and say bigoted things and laugh it up. And while there's nothing illegal about it, it is protected speech. It is unfortunate. There's definitely something unethical, immoral, and definitely bigoted about it. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a symptom of the Trump era, which has emboldened racists and bigots to speak loudly and proudly. You know, we have a president who during a debate told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by.
Yep.
We are living in an era where the people in his administration are blatant xenophobes and homophobes, and they have empowered this to be so much more public. You know, I've, over the course of my life as a road traveling stand-up comedian, have witnessed people being racist. It usually, take it for what it's worth, anecdotally, is in the South, where there's still a lot of vestiges of racism that people feel comfortable speaking publicly, more than I've seen it publicly anywhere else. I know it is everywhere else, but it's just a wild bit of truth about our society. And this woman, to not only tell a racist joke to people she does not know, but a double racist joke, making fun of both a physical characteristic and making light of their deaths during a horrible incident in human history. The only time atomic bombs were ever used is just truly disgusting. And I don't know. It's just sometimes humanity leaves you wanting for more from us, rather.
Yeah. You know, Ben, I noticed something, and this is just an interesting case study of life. When President Obama was in office, you got 8 years of President Obama. Obviously, there were bigots who didn't like it. There were traditionalists who had a problem with it. There were conservatives who said some of the most extreme things you could ever imagine. But even with 8 years of Obama, it didn't do what 4 years of Trump did as far as the conversation we're having today as relates to the comfort level of bigots in this country. What say you to that?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think 8 years of Obama really emboldened racists to like get their pot brewing, to get themselves, you know, feeling not happy about where the country's going, sadly. But Trump made it okay to start saying it out loud again. And that's what has set us so far back. And that's why I think it's accurate when people say make America great again, secretly really deeply refers to a time when white people had more power than the incredible power that they already have now. And when minorities knew their place or were forced to be told their place in society. And equality is scary to weak, shallow, immoral people that can't handle a society that doesn't look just like them, and they can't handle it because they've just been raised with normalized bigotry based on nothing.
Yeah, very sad, but it is reality. And once again, light, shining light, is the best way to overcome the darkness that's before us. We got more on the other side.
Also, just quickly, Doc, I just really miss when Karens were a lot more fun.
Right, there you go. A lot more lighthearted, right? All right, we got more on the other side. Is Indisputable. Stick and stay.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
All right, welcome back. A lot of show left. I'm going to read a couple of these comments. Very thankful for everyone joining the conversation. There's a lot to discuss. All right. Okay, all right. No comments right now. All right, we'll come back to the comments in a moment. All right. Well, it happened. Black women kicked off a flight because a passenger said he felt threatened. I'm going to give you a portion of the video. Here it is.
But make up stuff about what?
Absolutely not.
But make up stuff about what? What could have possibly happened that made this happen? Okay. No, because we didn't do anything to be kicked off of the plane. We were never rude. We never got on to anyone or did anything. So what is that? Why would that even happen? Who is they?
The captain and the flight attendant.
Her?
They discussed it, and if the crew decides you can't go, you can't go.
We don't know anything that happened at all. I'm just letting them show. The guy in the front said I don't know what he said. We don't even know what happened, but if they put their hands on me, I'm calling the cops. Baby, did you get got the backpack? Are you fucking serious right now? I never spoke to him. I never said anything to him.
I'm going to give you the backstory as to what led up to this event. Here's some of it.
When I got on the flight, I put my backpack under my front seat, and the flight attendant asked me to move my backpack. I said, that's fine. I can put it above me if there's any more space up there. So I got up, and I said, if I can move this bag over, then I can fit my bag right here. And I touched the bag above me, and the guy next to me got up and yelled at me and said, do not touch my bag. Do not touch my stuff. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. The guy started whispering to his wife next to me, and he got up and he said, I'm threatened. I feel threatened. And he yelled at the people that worked on the plane and told them that he felt threatened and that he felt uncomfortable. He said that it was a race thing and that he felt threatened because he's white and I'm black, and that I mentioned something racist towards him, although I never spoke to him or even said anything out loud. And they pulled me and my partner off of the flight. And they said, oh, it's a race thing.
They went first class, by the way. Put up the picture full mass. I have much detail to this story. A Black female passenger in first class claimed that she was kicked off an American Airlines flight. Here we go again with American Airlines, because a white male allegedly felt racially threatened. The woman recently posted multiple videos about her experience on TikTok under her account at @LoveAGirlMagic. One video shows the moment she and her girlfriend were booted from the flight. Another shows her brief encounter with a white male passenger who allegedly told the flight crew that he felt threatened after she touched his bag in an overhead bin. Naturally, first class or not first class, when you are on a flight, your bag may get touched, especially when it comes to finding room. And if the passenger does not move it over to the left or to the right or maybe to the back, a flight attendant will, in order to accommodate group travel. So she stated that she and a partner boarded the flight with first class tickets. When she made it to her seat, she put her backpack under the seat in front of her, but a flight attendant requested she use space in one of the overhead bins. She found space in the overhead bin above her seat and attempted to move another passenger's belongings to make room for her backpack. Quote, I touched the bag above me, and the guy next to me got up and yelled at me and said, do not touch my bag. Do not touch my stuff, end quote. At that point, a flight attendant offered to move her backpack to a different overhead bin. She agreed to move her bag as long as it was in a nearby bin within her line of sight, since it carried valuable tech products. after her belongings were moved. She said she saw the man who yelled at her whisper something to a woman seated next to him before loudly broadcasting, "I'm threatened. I feel threatened." Now, I believe the woman who posted the video. I believe her narrative. I believe possibly the whisper was the conspiracy. Go along with it. Follow my lead. She recalled hearing the man tell the flight crew that he felt threatened and uncomfortable because she did not place her backpack near his belongings, adding the claim that race was a factor in her decision to move her bag. Quote, he said that it was a race thing and that he felt threatened because he's white and I'm Black, and that I mentioned something racist towards him, although I never spoke to him or even said anything out loud, other than I didn't want my bag to be next to people I did not know. Once again, back to the line of sight dynamic. She said the flight crew immediately booted her off the flight, told her she was being removed because the male passenger reported he was threatened, even though she never said anything to him. Quote, they pulled me and my partner off the flight and they said, oh, it's a race thing. It's a race thing. And I asked, what's the race problem? If there's a race thing, it should be against me more than anything. End quote. Now, if that's all it takes, I want to pose something. I want to pose a question. Do you believe that if she would have said, hey, I believe this person has threatened me, do you think the flight crew, without question, do they take him and his travel companion off of that plane and cite, well, somebody said you threatened them? You see, I haven't seen it happen that way. They did this according to the allegation without question. She said a flight attendant told her verbatim, that the issue was, quote, a race thing, and that she repeatedly asked for clarification about the racial factor in her removal, quote, and so they kicked me off the flight and my partner off the flight, and they physically pushed me off the flight, and they just kept saying, oh, it's a race thing, end quote. The woman also questioned whether she should call the police over the situation. Quote, I never spoke to anyone on the flight other than the flight attendant when I asked her if I could move my bag somewhere. Please tell me what race has to do with me being on a flight, she explained. The male passenger just jumped up and said, I was threatened, although no one threatened him. No one talked to him. He lied. No one ever talked to him. And all of a sudden, there was a race problem. Now, let me tell you why I believe that no one threatened him. This is my personal belief. Because the threat, the nature of the threat was never articulated. If there's a threat, the threat is this person said they were going to do A, B, and or C to me. Okay, now you have articulated the nature of the threat. To simply say somebody threatened me, but there's no articulation of what the threat is, no question about the threat itself, no investigation if a threat happened, no threat on record at all is a problem. There's more. Put it up. If you remember last year, 3 Black men, we just reported on the update of this, were booted from American Airlines after a passenger complained that the Black men had a foul odor on the plane. They didn't know each other, okay? The men filed a racial discrimination lawsuit with the airline, and that lawsuit settled last month. The airline employees involved in the incident were also suspended from their positions because of their actions. Last year, if you recall, retired Judge Pamela E. Hillville. We had her on the show. The judge spoke with us about the incident in which American Airlines, a male flight attendant, told her to use the rear restroom. She was in first class also. Used the rear restroom despite being in first class, and then falsely accused the judge of assaulting him and tried to get her arrested. You know why she did not get arrested? Because when the police arrived to arrest her, they were able to determine she did not assault anyone, gave her we apologize, there's no issue here, and she continued to move forward. She never assaulted anybody. She simply was in first class with her husband and another passenger who needed attention. It was another passenger who was elderly and needed attention, and they wanted to make sure they remained close to that other passenger. And they did not move when they were asked, hey, can you move to make way for this other person who wants to be in first class? The husband said no. Yeah, it's a courtesy. If they want to move, they can. They don't have to. They were asked, and that's when the conflict started. Once again, American Airlines. Put up the CEO. American Airlines CEO, Robert Isom. Buck stops with him. Now, one incident, possibly an employee-related dynamic. Two, you're starting to get systemic. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you have a culture problem. You have a problem in your culture. All right, Ben, thoughts here.
I mean, Doc, I feel threatened by you calmly reading this story. You know, it would make me comfortable if you were removed from your own show, because this is not acceptable. I mean, that's exactly the evidence this person presented, that insanity. There wasn't even the allegation of a threat. Right. There was the allegation of feeling threatened. Well, you can't invalidate someone's feelings. I feel threatened. Not only did they not outline the specific threat, they didn't even say there was a threat. They didn't say that the person offered a threat their way, just they feel threatened. Maybe that person just feels threatened by the presence of Black people. So therefore, Black people should be removed from flights. I mean, you know, it almost seems like the only course of action until our society corrects itself that people in this situation who are the targets of racism and discrimination can take rather, is when someone says something like, I feel threatened, immediately reply, I feel threatened. And just create almost a standoff where now it's more clear the racial bias of the staff and of the airline, because now you got equal accusations going both ways. It sucks that this is the way you have to maybe think, but we do not live in a society that is doling out its situations in any sort of fair manner.
Yep, and you make a great point, because if they would have said, listen, we feel threatened, you don't get a stalemate. You don't get a stalemate. You still get the same outcome, which proves the weighing of the bias here. All right, we'll bring you updates as they come. Very sad story. Kentucky cops, Kentucky police raid the wrong home and they kill an innocent man. Put him up full mass. This brother should be alive. This man should be alive. Kentucky police killed 63-year-old Douglas Harless after dispatchers repeatedly told police officers the address of a house they were supposed to raid over an alleged stolen weed eater. You heard me correctly. Only for the cops to raid the wrong home, kill the man inside of the home. Police said Douglas Harless, quote, produced a firearm and pointed it at officers, which is why they, according to the report, had to shoot and kill him just before midnight last week. Let us zoom out for a moment. Why are you raiding somebody's home for a damn weed eater? Why are you serving a warrant at 12 midnight. Dispatcher repeated the correct address at least 5 times. That is on the record. The dispatcher repeated the correct address at least 5 times to the officers before they chose to raid the wrong address. That's according to WKYT News, which obtained the dispatch audio and also spoke to the owner of 489 Van Zant Road, who said nobody has lived in that home for months. The incident is also raising questions as to why the police were asking dispatchers for the address if they had an actual search warrant, which would list the address on the damn warrant. WKYT said it has made multiple public records requests for the warrant, but the Laurel County Courthouse says it has no record of a warrant, and police have not produced a copy of the warrant either. But Kentucky State Police specifically mentioned London Police had a, quote, search warrant in its statement published on its website. Neighbors told local media they were searching for a stolen weed eater on December 23rd when they banged on Harless' front door at 11:50 p.m. Quote, I heard 5 shots. One neighbor told WLEX, who did not want to be identified, quote, at least 5 shots woke me up. I was laying on the couch. Footage from local media shows the address 511 was clearly visible on the front of Mr. Harless' home. Yet, after the shooting, a voice can be heard on dispatch saying, shots fired, 489 Van Zant Road, end quote. Quote, he was a very quiet, humble person, said Carl Merritt, who lives across from the Harless home and who is listed as the owner of several properties on that block, including 489 Van Zant Road. According to the online records from the Laurel County Property Appraiser's Office, quote, stayed to himself, never bothered nobody. For something like that to happen to that poor man, it hurts me really to think somebody like that, especially in my backyard, being shot in his own home, end quote. Kentucky State Police, who are investigating the shooting, said in the statement, on December 24th, 2024, officers from the London Police Department were following up with an investigation which started in the city limits of London. This investigation led officers to attempt to execute a search warrant at a residence on Van Zant Road in Laurel County. While doing so, the occupant of the residence produced a firearm and pointed it at officers. The officer then responded with force, which resulted in the death of the occupant. Let me give you a response from the victim's family. Meanwhile, Harless's friends and family are expressing outrage on Facebook under the hashtag Justice for Doug Harless, including the following comment from his brother, Mark. Several, not 1 or 2 officers, but several went to the address on said warrant, which was at the wrong house. He was asleep. Someone knocking, then kicking in the door around midnight. What would you do? Steal several officers and AR-15s for the guy they were supposed to be delivering the warrant on. Wow. For a weed eater. Jerry Holland has been the chief of the London, Kentucky Police since April of 2024. I'm going to say this for the record. Something don't smell right here. Either your office is holistically incompetent and incapable, or there is something else to this that we don't know. Now, there's a dead human being that should be alive. The man should be alive. And it seems as if so many missteps happened that it is a shock to the conscience to believe that any one department is this damn incapable and incompetent. We're going to continue to follow this story until the truth is revealed. Dear brother, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a tragedy. You know, I wish I was able to say I was shocked that the police messed something up very badly. But when you've got this level of incompetence where you are told 5 times about what the address is, the exact number, the number's not even close, they didn't even start with the same number. It's not like they were next door.
Right.
Completely different address. Claim to have a warrant if they indeed did. The address obviously would be on there. Shouldn't even be asking for it. And if they didn't, well, that's a whole nother problem. Now there's a bigger issue and conspiracy happening here. But you're right, a man has lost his life for completely no reason. How do you not draw your weapon when people barge into your home with guns drawn in the middle of the night when you're asleep? You know, it echoes Breonna Taylor. It echoes a lot of just difficult times in the past. And these things keep happening. You know, mistakes do happen, but this one seems far too strange. So I'm sure more will come out.
And there's no indication that he was a high-risk warrant. There's no indication that this individual was violent in nature. Why not just knock on the door, have a detective knock on the door and say, hey, listen, there's an allegation that there's a stolen piece of property here. Oh, we got the wrong address. My apologies. Why serve a warrant as if this is a drug lord when it's nothing of the sort? All right, Ben, always a pleasure, dear brother, having you on the program. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
Thank you, Doc. It's great to be here as always. Happy New Year to you and to everybody. You can subscribe to my podcast, Last Week on Earth. You see it right there, where I cover the world every week. I just summarized the entire year on my episode that just came out a few days ago. So check that out and my thoughts of the year to come. And follow me on social media, especially Instagram at Ben Gleib, where I now receive my mail, live, and do most of my sleeping.
And Ben is one of the funniest, most sensible with wit individuals, especially in political commentary, that you will find in these streets. So brother, we appreciate all you do, man, to make us laugh when we have no choice but to cry, but you make us laugh when we should be crying. So thank you, brother, for all you do.
Thank you, Doc. And, you know, I'll say on the last story, I'm especially concerned because I'm a weed eater myself. And so it's really your time.
There you go. All right, my friend, we'll talk soon. All right, we got the bullpen next. Stick and stay.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
All right, welcome back. A lot of show left. Let me read a few of these comments. I'm kind of pressed for time. Purple Rain Dragon says, it is a race thing. He was racist, so were the flight crew. Also, Colin Hutton, thank you so much for that, says that passenger looks like Farron Cousins' evil twin. I'm laughing because I had the same thought. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. All right, in the Bullpen today, we have Mr. Parker Short, former president of the Georgia Young Democrats, a group I was a member of many years ago. I'm a little too old for the Young Democrats today. I aged out. But brother, good to have you on the program. You have an undergraduate degree in public policy from the University of Michigan. You're working on a master's in public policy at Duke. You've also served as a DNC delegate 2000, Georgia 04, lifelong DeKalb resident, one of the most progressive counties in the world, really, definitely in the state of Georgia. List goes on and on. So what in the hell are young Dems and progressives going to do under this Trump administration? That's why I have you on the show. Sir, good day to you.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Ritchie. It's really an honor to be here. And God, it really is startling. We lost, but we've been here before. And for me, it's the same as it was before. It starts locally. Young Democrats have so much power in their own communities. And you talk about DeKalb County being so progressive. I am so proud of DeKalb County because just a month after we lost the election and Kamala Harris lost, we elected an extremely progressive, amazing candidate, Dr. Ladina Bolton, to represent half the county in Super District 7. She was Working Families Party endorsed. I worked with her in the DeKalb County Young Democrats years ago. And it's about building community power, investing in a bench, making sure that we have local candidates that are fighting for progressive issues in your county commission, in your city council, and in your state legislature. One thing that Republicans have done well is after Obama got elected, they focused on flipping state legislative seats. Democrats have gotten wiped out. In Georgia, we're only 10 seats away from flipping the state legislature. For us, that can mean restoring abortion rights, expanding Medicaid, giving 600,000 people health care, investing in Georgia schools. So it starts locally. It starts in our own state. We're going to continue the battle against Trump, but it starts by talking to your own neighbors, electing local candidates. And if we all do that all over the country, we're going to build a movement that they can't fight back against.
Let's talk about the importance of building a bench, something that I've echoed on this show and in my political career. It seems as if we are so fixated on the presidential election or national politics that we forget the power of the local representative. And when it comes down to it, that local representative is going to impact you faster and probably even more in a more aggressive manner than, let's say, a presidential pick. But if we don't focus on electing folk locally, you don't have the bench, you don't have the talent already in position to take some of these national elections, U.S. Congress and presidential. What say you to that?
Well, it is important that we build a bench, and we've started to do that here in Georgia. In my eyes, Georgia is a model for other states. We've got 2 Democratic U.S. senators, and one of them, John Ossoff, is the youngest senator in the country. Yeah. I'm very proud of the fact, even though Kamala Harris lost on election day, we elected the youngest member of the Georgia state legislature. Bryce Berry is 23 years old. He's a Morehouse graduate. He's one of my best friends, and he beat an incumbent Republican in Atlanta. I think that's very, very noteworthy. I'm very proud of my friend, and he's going to spend decades fighting for progressive values in Georgia. We've got a 23-year-old who's going to go in there and fight for his students and his community. That can't be said for some of our 80-year-old Democrats. It's definitely not said for most of our Republicans. If you look at a local level, I'm a proud Georgian. Brian Kemp, as the governor, took away reproductive freedom in our state, which has resulted in the death of Georgians. He's refused to expand Medicaid, which refuses to give 600,000 people health care, and has led to hospital closures from downtown Atlanta to rural Georgia. And he passed gun laws that made it so unsafe that a music festival had to cancel. A local government really does impact your life, from the city council to the state legislature. legislature. It's governors and senators who often end up running for president. And if we don't put the right people in these positions, we're backing ourselves in the corner. And I'll just say to your viewers, the most important part of this is a primary. In many seats, whoever wins is just determined in the Democratic or Republican primary because we're so gerrymandered and so polarized. The turnout in primaries is so much lower. If we're not going and engaging and fighting in our primaries, we're going to get a general election candidate that we're not happy with. And when young Democrats mobilize and engage, because less people are turning out in primary, we have more of an opportunity to make a difference and win those seats. And that's how we get progressives elected.
You know, we mentioned Bryce, and I echo your sentiment. Bryce is a remarkable individual who is now a remarkable representative, right? But Bryce, I remember the first time I met Bryce, very intentional. But there was this other dynamic where the gatekeepers, and let me be frank, the gatekeepers in the Democratic Party, many of them were not connecting to our brother as they should. And we have this as a program approach, where it's almost as if you got to wait your turn. Wait your turn for what? There are individuals who have not been purchased, who will not be purchased, who believe in their ideals, who will not back down to corporate interests, et cetera. And it seems as if in the Democratic Party, especially among those who we call gatekeepers or traditionalists, they want to hold those individuals at bay. So how do we, now there's one fight obviously with the conservative agenda, but how do we fight the agenda inside of left-leaning politics that would try and silence a voice like Bryce and others?
Well, trust me, I run up against those gatekeepers all the time. It's very real. Those smoke-filled rooms of politics. Unfortunately, the establishment and the status quo is still throwing around way too much weight, and they're losing. Bryce is a winner. He's done amazing things, and he's going to prove why his voters elected him. But it's really, oftentimes the party will say no. They are really caught in the past, and they trip up over themselves. In Georgia, we've tried to build youth power within the Democratic Party. I'm a state committee member of the Georgia Democratic Party. I vote on bylaws changes, our leadership. I go to those meetings and I try to hold folks accountable. But it really starts in your county parties. I'm really proud of another friend of mine, Duro Haynes, who's 25 years old, and he's the chairman of the Henry County Party. Henry County had the largest shift in the entire country towards Democrats, 9 points towards Democrats. I want to give my friend Duro his flowers on this one, because it takes youth organizing. It takes folks that are kind of willing to shake up the status quo, move the party forward, stop fighting for, internal petty battles, and start fighting for the people you're supposed to represent. We've got young people leading our county parties across the state. We got a 20-year-old as the vice chairman of the Gwinnett County Party. And in North Carolina, where I'm getting my master's in public policy, the chairwoman of our state party is 27, Anderson Breeze Clayton. She's an amazing person, and she has done a great job with that state party. And the fact is, because she's willing to go in there, she ran against an incumbent, beat an incumbent, has gone in there, developed a 100 county party strategy, and has made it so that they're competing all across the state. We need young people to throw their weight around at these county party meetings, because it's usually a bunch of older folks that aren't really up with the times, and we can go in there and win some elections.
In Georgia, you have 159 counties, and the majority of those counties, you, at least on paper, you have a functional county Democratic Party that becomes your conduit to the state Democratic Party that becomes your proxy connection to the DNC. But if you don't have that local organization, it's very difficult to penetrate beyond that. And that's what you bring to the awareness of viewers now, is that there's an apparatus locally for you to join. And if you don't have one in your particular state, make one, start one, figure out how to create the chapter. What say you?
Well, then if you start there's 30 counties in the state of Georgia where we don't have a county party, and it frustrates me deeply. But the truth is, if you go in there as a young progressive person and you say, I want to start a county party, you're going to end up as the chair of that county party. Right. And then you're able to encourage people to run for state legislature. You're able to say, no, we shouldn't take corporate PAC money. We're going to have these local community building events. We're going to give back to the county that we serve. And then you're in a leadership position. I'll tell you, if you go to a county Democratic Party meeting, whether it's DeKalb or Fulton or Noonan, and you go there for a year, you'll end up in leadership, because a lot of these folks are not dedicated. It's a volunteer role, and that's where these decisions are made. That's where this money is thrown around, and that's how these parties are operated. So if you want to build power locally, there's already this party apparatus. And if you go in there and stir things up, the likelihood is you're going to be able to use that power toward a progressive direction that hopefully can actually win and deliver for the people of that county. Because I think Georgians and people all over the country are sick and tired of politicians that don't put their needs first.
Yeah, and you will also find these very beautiful gems of individuals who we would call them gatekeepers, but they're very progressive in the belief of young people having an opportunity for leadership. And I've seen that as well. And I have misjudged some people at times, given assumptions, et cetera, in my past. So I know that those gems exist inside of those county party structures. And while we are natural disruptors, progressives are natural disruptors, there are systems worthy of disruption. That's the reason why we are natural disruptors. Before you go, man, I want to say this, and I've said it on Indisputable plenty of times, because we have to remind ourselves of something. You all will not be denied. And this is what I share with my daughter, and I actually find peace in this. No matter what happens, you all are our future leaders, period. And when I think about it in that context, I know that the future is bright. When I saw students on college campuses walking out in protest of humanitarian dynamics, the inhumane treatment of Palestinians walking off of campus, hand in hand, Jewish student groups, Palestinian student groups, I said, this is the future who will lead us. So when we look at it in that context, it becomes a more fulfilling and bright future. But in order to be that, leadership has to start now. So for the young person who's watching this right now, and they feel as if they're not empowered to become that kind of leader, what would you say to them?
You really are. I mean, I've been involved in politics for 7 years, and now I'm on your show. I started a high school Democrats club. I walked out of my high school against gun violence. We organized against DACA, the anti-DACA restrictions from Donald Trump, and held a protest at my school. And now I'm here because I kept fighting and I didn't give up. In 2016, nobody thought Georgia was a competitive state. And now we have 2 Democratic U.S. senators. No matter what corner of the country you're in, no matter how red, people care about working class values. People care about justice, and they see injustice in their own communities. And when you go and you fight for what is right, people will support you. And you can't just let power do what it wants with you. The party system is frustrating, but you need to take hold of it. And if you want to change things up, you need to grapple with the systems that unfortunately define our politics. So to these young folks out there, it's not as hard as you may think. I promise you, you go to a county party meeting, it's gonna be 40 old people, and a couple of them are gonna pinch you on the cheek because they're so happy to see you, because they don't have any young folks there. We need to invest in this coalition, and y'all are the future. I really believe every time I meet a young person involved in politics or not, the conversations we have are far less polarizing, because I think we all want better for this country, because we're gonna have to live with this future. So get out there and fight for the future that you want to see.
That's right. Become the change you want to see. Dear brother, we thank you, man. I appreciate your friendship and your authentic leadership personally and professionally. For those who are watching, this is a great example to follow. I'm looking forward to continued great things from you. And man, you have an open opportunity. Anytime you want to come on the show, just let me know. All right.
I appreciate it. It's really an honor to be here, and I will definitely take you up on that. Thank you for your work. It's always a pleasure to watch. And to your viewers, have a happy new year. Thank you.
Happy New Year, dear brother. Thank you for all you do. All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.